Hello, LA Rams fans. Today we're talking about your football team, and they're a pretty interesting squad with kind of how they just go about everything, kind of anti the rest of the NFL. I would say. What do you think is your first thought on the LA Rams, Jake?
Without thinking at all about the Rams, they're the most stacked team in the league because I'm just going to take everything that Robert Woods says as the truth. So that's my first thought. Just like obviously their players are very confident if you have guys coming out saying that they're the most stacked team in the league.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think I agree with it though. But their
No,
players
I
are
don't
very
I don't agree
confident.
with that statement either, but I like the confidence.
Yeah, their players are extremely
It's a
confident.
it's a team that like deserves the confidence. Like I mean if DJ Chark came out and was like, "Yeah, we're the most stacked team in the league on the Jags," I'd be like, "Okay, bro, why don't you calm down a little bit?" But Robert Woods on the Rams, I'll accept that. I like the confidence.
I like that you picked DJ Chark out of everybody in the NFL. DJ Chark. That's a good one. I like that. DJ Chark. Underrated, though.
Yes, very underrated.
All right, do I lead today? I can't even
Yes,
remember. It
you
feels
do
like
lead us off today.
feels like it's been forever since we talked about Pittsburgh, and it was only 3 days ago. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so first off, everything with this offense is just so efficient and fluid. It looks so smooth. It's great. It is just so amazing that you can watch an offense and just think that anyone could do it with how they play the game. You can't say enough how great the scheme is. It's like such a testament
Mm-hmm.
to coaching. Obviously, I don't think that's anything that surprises anybody. But Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are amazing players specifically for this offense. They just know how to do what they do well. And I don't know if just any receivers could actually step into those roles, even though I just said like it feels like the offense could just be ran with anybody because of how smooth it goes. It will be interesting to see Stafford have to roll out and move. He'll be on the move a lot more than he was ever required to be in Detroit, and that'll be interesting just to see how that goes. I mean, I think he can do it, but it's just a
Mm-hmm.
one thing to keep an eye on if something does look strange for whatever reason. It's cool to see Cam Akers get involved later in the season. He really came on well, and honestly, by the end, he was running a lot stronger than I remember him running. And it's actually a point I make later here is that they get to this game in Green Bay, and I don't love talking about like a warm weather team going to an outdoor cold weather environment and like having a bad game because of that. But I feel like there were some players on the Rams that actually that happened to, and sometimes it does happen. It's not always, but sometimes it does happen. And Cam Akers is just not one of those guys. He was still running the ball really well in that game. I just want to give him more credit than I probably ever did before. Uh, Aaron Donald's good at football, if you didn't know. Just thought I'd point that out. This
Mm-hmm.
defense hits hard. Darius Williams' interception against DK Metcalf is beautiful, and actually, Darius Williams' season in general was kind of great. Uh, had no idea that he was listed as a linebacker, but that was interesting to learn. Um, it's amazing how long you can watch Rams games and not have Jalen Ramsey get mentioned because he just shuts guys down, and that's kind of how it goes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe like one or two plays a game you see him at all, but he does his job extremely well. And then a healthy quarterback would have been really nice for the playoffs for them. I think that would have helped them a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and then two things I just said about Stafford really quickly because the other thing I watched 3 games and then I went and looked at Stafford. Most other positions I wouldn't do this for, but obviously if it's a quarterback changing teams and we're not going to talk about him in the college area thing, it's probably worth it. I mean, he still puts the ball in a rope, like just like super strong arms still. He makes tight window throws really confidently. He's you know there's not much to knock on him. I mean, unless you really just want to talk about the fact that he's not like an elite scrambler that we have in some of those young NFL players we have now. That's really the only thing you can point out about him that's not great. But even then, I mean, in the past we've seen him truck guys. So I mean, what can Stafford really not do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My notes for the Rams. First thing, just when you watch them, because I avoided making notes about Goff, just because there's no point. He's not going to be on the team this year. But outside of Tampa Bay, they probably have the best one-two punch at receiver. Uh, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. I mean, Cleveland could give him a run for the money, but Odell didn't play last season, so I can't really gauge that. They're so good. They both find the soft spots very well. They both create separation well. They can stretch the field, run short routes, aren't afraid to go over the middle. They do everything very, very well. Daryl Henderson has some great burst as soon as he gets the ball. I mean, he might not have like breakaway speed, but he's getting 5 yards untouched as soon as the ball gets in his hands with how fast he is as soon as he touches it. It's insane. Van Jefferson, for being a number 4 receiver, probably going to still be at that slot now that they got Deshaun Jackson and drafted a couple guys. He never looked above average at any time in the season. He always looked below it or just there. And I think the only time he was just there is when I saw him get his 1 touchdown reception. And even that was like very mediocre catch and play. For a second round wideout, you'd want more. I understand he's at the 4 spot, but there were guys that were taken after him, like Gabe Davis, who produced well, Gabe Davis was slotted in at the number 3 receiver because of injuries, but he was the number 4 receiver for the Bills, and he just balled out when he had opportunities. And Van Jefferson really never did that, and the Rams gave him a decent amount of opportunities. You just really want more from him, and he's 24 already. I mean, he's going into his second year, and he's 24. That's really not that great. Ja'Kai Polite is on the Rams. I had no idea. I know that the Jets cut him like 2 years ago as soon as they drafted him. So I always wondered where he ended up, but he's on the Rams now, which, I mean, good talent. He was good enough to go in like the second round. I think he was projected to go in the first during that draft. Obviously, I think there's some character issues there, but he's a great talent. And that's just scattered across the Rams D-line. Troy Hill and just every other corner not named Jalen Ramsey is very, very good at what their job is, and that is when the opposing team does not throw at the guy that Jalen Ramsey is covering, just intercept the ball. And they did that very, very efficiently. Like, if they're not going to throw at Ramsey, because Ramsey would pick it off, just pick the ball off when they're throwing to their 2 or 3 guy. And Troy Hill and every other corner did that very, very well. Stafford could take this offense to even another level from what Goff did, because you can see, and you said this, Sean McVay schemes this offense very well. Like, so good. It schemed it to a point that, like, it made Jared Goff look like Super Bowl MVP at a point, or even NFL MVP. If you can take away, like, you're going to still have that scheme because that scheme is very good. You take away some of that, like, all right, just rely on the routes that I am drawing up for you and don't have to do much. Stafford, you don't have to just tell him, like, okay, this guy's definitely going to be open because I'm scheming him open. You could be like, all right, you can work your way through your reads here and try to take a shot downfield because, unlike Goff, Stafford does have the arm to be taking shots downfield, which is a huge plus for the Rams. They have a guy that has very elite arm talent and can stretch the field. Yeah, McVay did a lot to get Goff easy reads. The entire Rams pass rush owes Aaron Donald dinner for like the rest of his life, because these guys are getting sacks that they should not be getting because the opposing team's offensive line is putting 3 guys to block Aaron Donald, and guys like Ebukam and others that got broken off this offseason just paid somewhere else. They owe Aaron Donald dinner for the rest of his life just because they're getting easy double-digit sack seasons because 3 or 4 guys are assigned to block 1 dude. And Johnny Hecker is the best in the business.
Yeah. I mean, we should probably say this since I don't know how many people are watching that are like consistently watching every one of these, but if you've heard us talk about Aaron Donald before, it's just the fact that like he's amazing, but it's just the fact that like people aren't even willing to consider another player for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know. I just much rather would have seen Xavier Howard win it this past year than anybody else, but I mean, he's dominant, so I don't know if I should really complain about it as much as I do. That's what.
Yeah, it's just seeing the same thing over and over again gets tiring, but when it's elite like that, just elite performances over and over again, it's hard to argue.
Yeah. So how did they cope with losing the as you say, Sean McVay of defense?
Brandon Staley? I don't know, man. I mean, Aaron Donald is good. He's very, very good. And also, like, like I said, that pass rush, and they figured it out in the draft too, because they lost all these other guys in free agency, Ebukam, and others. I just keep bringing him up because he's number one on my list of free agent losses. Uh, but they went in the draft and like, all right, let's just stock up on edge rushers and defensive linemen because anyone could get to the ball if they're using four offensive linemen to block Aaron Donald. Anyone could get to the quarterback at
We
that
just
point.
need fresh legs.
Yeah.
Okay. For stats, I've got all three of the top running backs had over 4 yards a carry, which is really good. That's amazing. But once again, just I didn't have this written, but I remember it because I'm thinking about it. Is high on Darrell Henderson a little while ago, and now they're moving to Cam Akers for whatever reason. But Darrell Henderson still was having a higher yards per carry than Cam Akers, even though I just gave Cam Akers some compliments. The jet sweeps help a ton of stuff. I mean, more teams should be using them even more often. There's no reason to not get that involved at least like three actual handoffs to jet sweeps at times in games and like showing the look like 10 times a game. I mean, it helps so much. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods both had just less than 1,000 yards and each had 90 plus catches. That's insane, just efficiency perspective. Although they're not getting like a ton of yards per reception, I mean, it's just so efficient with what they do. You can't knock it at all. Darius Williams led the team with 4 interceptions. He also had 14 passes defended, which led the team. Aaron Donald forced 4 fumbles, 13 and a half sacks for Aaron Donald, 10 and a half sacks for Leonard Floyd. Their leading tackler they lost, and one of our favorite players in the NFL, John Johnson III, had 105 tackles. And then Donald and Floyd also had 10 plus tackles for loss each, and the kicking wasn't too great. And then the return game wasn't very special either. Just interesting to see that those things weren't probably need to like just be like reanalyzed again because they weren't too special.
Yeah, you touched on everything I wanted to for sets, so let's just move on to free agents. What do you
Alrighty.
got?
So acquisitions list is really short. If they didn't trade for Stafford, it would be even shorter, but Stafford's on there, who we've already mentioned. Then we've got old man Deshaun Jackson, so we've got to hope that he can stay healthy to even play. And then the only other player I have is Corey Bajorquez, and if you aren't a Bills fan, since we are Bills fans, we know he had a great year punting the football last year. So it's really surprising to see him go to a team that already has a solid punter because he probably won't have a job and then there'll be a really good punter available in free agency. That's just interesting to see. It's pretty funny to think that besides Stafford, they really didn't acquire anybody because the punter's probably not going to be on the team. And Deshaun Jackson hasn't played a decent amount of games in 3 years.
Mm-hmm. The only other addition I have is Kareem Orr, who is a corner from the Panthers. Not really substantial at all, but more corner depth after losing some guys in free agency. And yeah, just one little note on Corey Bajorquez, since big punter guy. Uh, he didn't qualify for like any of the top tens in stats for punters because he didn't punt enough to qualify for any of those. But if he did, he would have been number one almost across the board in a bunch of like net average, inside the 5, 10, 20. He just didn't punt enough because the Bills just kept scoring and getting first downs.
Yeah, now, yeah, it's really weird how this past season that turned out. I mean, some players just sneak under the radar. Who's the one guy I keep calling back to? I don't know. I can't remember now. It's too bad. But, I mean, there's one guy that just got criminally underpaid, and it was like, what is going on? He was like a defensive...
Oh, Desmond King.
Yes. Yes, but I can't remember who he signed with. It's Desmond King, but I
Texans.
can't... Oh, yeah. He's good, what, like $2.5 million a year? Like, what is
Yeah,
that?
something for 1 year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, what is that? Losses, though. I mean, this really kind of changed my opinion on the team. I'm not gonna lie. I came into this beforehand thinking that I was gonna give them more wins than I did, and these losses didn't really help them. We got Jared Goff, who's just replaced by Matt Stafford, which is fine. But then we've got Josh Reynolds, Samson Ebukam, Gerald Everett, Malcolm Brown, Blake Bortles, so that's their backup quarterback, John Johnson III, Troy Hill, and Michael Brockers. I don't like having that many names on the losses side. Meanwhile, really only having one on the acquisitions side.
Yeah, I don't know. Their losses aren't that much of a big thing for me. Like I said, with anyone on that D line, I think you could just put anyone on that D line and they're going to produce just because of the bodies that are thrown in front of Aaron Donald. Uh, yeah, Josh Reynolds, I don't think that's that big of a loss. I mean, he's the number three receiver. They're bringing in Deshaun Jackson to replace him, but in reality, it's probably going to be Tutu Atwell to do that. Uh, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Uh,
I'd rather see Van Jefferson. I don't. I didn't like the second round receivers this year or the previous year, Van Jefferson and Tutu Atwell. But I mean, they've done it 2 years in a row. Somebody's got to step in. It's not really that great of a spot. But yeah, it's. I don't know if I don't know. I don't really love losing Josh Reynolds. I don't think it helps this team that much.
hmm. Well, why don't we just go into the draft here now?
Okay.
Tell me what you think about Tutu Atwell.
Okay, he's known for his speed, but watching him on the field, I don't feel he is as fast as people like say he is. That's the first thing. I don't love him, but I'm not gonna knock this pick, even though I wouldn't have made it. So that's me saying that I wouldn't pick the guy. But the thing is he's gonna be in McVay's offense, and if he gets that jet sweep special player role that Woods often takes a lot, but they have a young guy now who's like quick who can do it, then I don't see why he couldn't get really involved in the offense and be wanna get a decent amount of snaps and a decent amount of production out of him, at least for a rookie. Probably not crazy. We know Cup and Woods are still gonna lead the team, but it'll be interesting to see how they use him. Even though I'm not in love, but like you said with Van Jefferson, really kind of the same idea, like kind of the same thing for me coming out of the draft of okay, you picked a receiver higher than I would have picked at least that specific guy. And now I'm just like, gotta wait and see what you did. But you didn't prove it last year with the guy you picked last year, so I don't know if you're going to be able to prove it this year with this guy. I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make.
Yeah. In my notes, I know that this might not mean much to people that aren't Bills fans, but I wrote pre-draft Isaiah McKenzie 2.0 because that's just what he looked like. He's going to take a bunch of jet sweeps, and I said in my notes too, he's either going to get drafted by Kansas City, Buffalo, or the Rams. Though those were the three teams that I put because I'm like those are the teams that utilize the jet sweep and a bunch of gadget plays a lot. And he did go to the Rams. I do agree with you. He is fast. It's just not as fast as like everyone's hyping him up to be. At least on tape, he does not look very. He looks fast. He does not look as fast as people hype him up to be.
No, not at all. Um, Ernest Jones, very, very quick stuff on him. Shocked to see how high he got picked. He's a very new age linebacker, and I love the style, but the tape was just so short. If he got picked this
Mm-hmm.
high, I couldn't believe I couldn't find like more on him. It was just so quick. I don't have much to say because it's just like, okay, he kind of looks like a Deion Jones esque player, but like I didn't see a lot of him, so I don't really have any strong opinions.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I went and checked out his stats, and he looked like a decent coverage linebacker, but he only has one pick or two picks in his entire career, and he got both of them his sophomore season, which was last year because he came into the draft as a junior. He just looks like a jack of all trades, takes great pursuit angles, but not really too solid at one thing. But I think that's what the Rams defense usually goes on. They go with like unless you're a superstar, they want guys that are like good at like well-rounded at everything and not too solid at one specific thing.
Yeah, and honestly, the third pick for me, I should probably be careful considering now I've screwed up in two past videos accidentally, skipping over guys entirely, just missing them. And these guys had more draft picks than I thought they would. I thought these were the guys that were
Yeah.
supposed to trade away every draft pick. I got 9 guys. I was like, really? But Bobby Brown the third, I'm not seeing this one. There's some stuff here, but I wouldn't pick him this high. He took himself out of plays a lot. So sorry again, but I really can't praise any of these first 3 picks. Really, I'm not like falling in love with any of these guys.
Yeah, he looks like a pure run stuffer. Didn't do a lot in pass rush. He's there to blowing up runs, but other than that, it seems like if the QB's dropping back to throw, he's taking himself out of the play, like you said.
Okay, well we agree then.
Yeah.
Robert Rochelle, I remember you talking
This is
about
my
him.
guy.
I
This
didn't.
is my guy.
Yeah,
I raved about him when we talked
yeah,
about
no, I
corners.
remember you talking about him. Which I mean, we talked about a lot of guys, but I didn't see him. But yeah, now that I see him, he looks very good on tape. Obviously, the only question is the lower level competition. He can do a little bit of everything, and he's going to be interesting to watch. So this is the first guy I'll say that I'm actually at least a little bit excited about that came out of their draft.
Yes. I see. I was with you on like the free agent losses. Like, Troy Hill. I really like Troy Hill. He's gone. But then I see Robert Rochelle. And that's my guy out of Central Arkansas. One of the coolest fields I've ever seen, alternating purple and black. The dude can jump out of the gym. He has hops for days, dude. He is all over the place, making plays wherever he needs to be. The only thing is playing at very low competition. But you got Jalen Ramsey opposite him. If you're gonna, he's not gonna be the guy you want to throw at the whole time. Because he's, I really really like him.
Yeah, you said the jump out of the gym thing. Do you know how tall he is? Because I was thinking while I was watching him, I'm like, he plays really tall. Like he like his arm extensions,
I
that type of thing, all that. He's really good at just like getting up and making a play on the ball so that a receiver can't
Yeah.
make a catch.
All right, I was right. I need to check. He's 6'2".
Yeah, he's a big corner. And he can
Mm-hmm.
jump. That's crazy. Um Jacob Harris, he's got size and solid speed, but never saw any crazy athleticism of any kind on his receptions. Just kind of that size and speed combo. And it feels like they took a few shots on this type of player to just kind of get a bigger bodied receiver because they don't have one.
Yeah. When I saw that he was tight end slash wide receiver, I'm thinking, oh, okay. Looking in at it, I'm like, he's kind of a more of a receiver, but the Rams website had him listed as a tight end. So if they have him playing tight end, they got less athletic Kyle Pitts. Uh, like that's what he is. He's fast,
Significantly
but
less.
yeah, significantly less athletic Kyle Pitts. That's exactly what he is.
Yeah, you're right.
Still went to a school in Florida, went to a smaller school in Florida, UCF. Didn't go to
Actually,
Florida.
actually, I think I was looking at class size. I think they're a lot closer than you probably think.
Mm.
But I
All
mean,
right.
yeah, football program wise, Florida's a little
Yeah,
bit
the
bigger.
football program wise, yeah.
Yeah. Then Ernest Brown the fourth, very balanced player. He's a solid rusher. He's kind of a strip specialist, and he's got like the perfect size of like not being too big or not being too small at defensive end. So I think he's a decent player, and he's another guy that I'm not gonna knock him for this pick. I like this pick, especially where they got him.
Yeah, I wrote in all caps when I just brute force. This dude is not messing around. He is not trying to outspeed you. He is going to throw you into the dirt. And when just watching him, that finally made it click in my head. I'm like, oh, this is what they're doing. They're just drafting a bunch of D linemen because it doesn't matter who you have playing the D line. You could probably throw us on that D line and we could get a sack or two just because Aaron Donald is having all these guys block him. So I like their strategy, but I love this next
I
pick
was
for him
gonna
in the
say,
seventh round here.
is this your new favorite player in the NFL?
He may be my new favorite player in the NFL.
Okay, yeah. Jake Funk. I think this is the first white running back we've seen in the draft this year.
Mm-hmm.
He has decent vision, but I'm gonna be honest now. You can just make up whatever story you want, and I'll agree with it. But most of the runs he has are just based off how well it's blocked up. Honestly, he's not that impressive.
Oh, yeah.
He follows his blocks pretty well, but I mean, once he's in the open field, he doesn't do much at all.
No, he runs with a purpose though. He has great burst out of the blocks and everything. I think he could have gotten drafted higher, but looking into him more, because I mean, shows the same name as me, and with the last name Funk, how am I not gonna like look into this guy more? He tore both of his ACLs during his college career. Uh, and I still thought, I'm like, this guy's still got some decent burst to him. And I was like, oh, could you imagine if he didn't tear both of his ACLs? He'd probably be even faster. Uh, yeah, he just, like I said, great burst, runs with a purpose, runs hard. But that ACL injury, that's got to be a big concern and probably why he went in the seventh. But they needed a third running back, and Jake Funk is their guy. My new favorite running back in the NFL.
Yeah. Ben Skowronek, also
Skowronek.
also just like Jacob Harris, like at least what the Rams are looking for. Just jump ball size dude. Just taking a chance on him because it's a seventh round pick, and they feel like they have a void for that jump ball style of receiver, so they're going for him. He actually probably did that jump ball type thing better than Jacob Harris did, to be honest. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't think he had as much production.
I thought it was funny just seeing that they had Jacob Harris listed as a tight end on their website, and then I'm like, oh, they have this guy listed as a wide receiver. And I'm like, they could just make this guy play tight end too. Like he looks bigger than Jacob Harris. He could probably be a better blocker. I mean, most of the tape that I watched on him, it's not him catching a lot of balls. It's him like, oh, circle on him, watch him block this corner here. I'm like, yeah, he's overpowering this guy because he's like 6'5" and has 100 pounds on the corner he's lined up against. Of course, he's throwing him into the ground every time. Uh, but yeah, I think him and Jacob Harris might be competing for like who's the big body receiver, and whoever loses that's going to be relegated to like the second tight end.
Yeah, you may be right. It'll be interesting to see how many of these guys they drafted actually make the team. I feel like
Yeah.
most of them will because they're filling in a lot of spots of guys that left in free agency that really didn't get replacements. But it'll be interesting. Chris Garrett, pass rusher from a small school. His moves actually look pretty sleek, to be honest. But I mean, seventh round pick. I don't know how much stock I'll put into him, but he didn't look bad.
Uh, no, I do love him. He looked very clean in everything he did. Small school competition though, so there's that. But here's the difference between taking a shot on a small school guy in the seventh round and a small school guy in like the fifth round, like the Colts did. The Colts took a guy that's like two class. I looked into it. That guy is like two classes lower than this guy, the receiver that the Colts took.
Wait,
He's two class.
this guy?
Yeah, yeah. The Chris Garrett, the wide receiver that the Colts took, he's two classes lower than Chris Garrett. And I was like,
Oh,
geez.
yeah,
And they took that guy in like the fifth round, and they needed a receiver.
yeah, that's strange. Huh.
But Chris Garrett, he lines up everywhere. He plays out of his mind. And played very well against the competition that he had. And if you're just bodying competition that you have in D2 or D3, whatever he was, I think it was D2. Uh, you're going to find a way to at least get a shot in the NFL if you're bodying the competition you have.
Yeah. And then we have their best player they got in the entire draft. Did you realize this?
No,
You didn't look. They got
at their
they got
UDFA's.
they got one of my top 5 safeties. I think he was either number 4 or 3 for me because he went undrafted. Pretty sure because of off the field stuff. Paris Ford is on the LA Rams.
Oh, yes, the other Pitt safety.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's
you,
very good.
yep. Because I know it was hard for us to. You and I both had the Pitt safeties. Damar Hamlin and Paris Ford
In
right
the top
next to each
10.
other, and both
Yeah,
of our
they were
rank.
high.
Yeah, right next to it. And you had Paris Ford above Damar Hamlin. I had Damar Hamlin above Paris Ford. I only had Damar Hamlin above Paris Ford because he doesn't have the off the field issues that Paris Ford has.
Yeah.
I remember watching the draft and seeing like I know that Mel's top five doesn't mean anything to actual NFL teams, but it means something to me. It just seeing the names there, and I think in like the sixth round, Paris Ford just sat there. He just sat there the whole time. Then it got to like when the Bills had two picks back to back, and the first one was Damar Hamlin. I'm like, we're gonna get both the Pitt safeties back to back here, and we did it. And I'm like, this guy's gonna go undrafted, isn't he? And he did. So, geez, he
Yeah.
would be able to fill in for John Johnson the third like immediately. They
Dude,
got like a starter
that
as an
guy-
undrafted free agent.
That guy is insane. I mean, we talk about how good like a lot of the players on Pitt were. I mean, I didn't watch him back for this just because I remember being like so impressed with him. Okay, everybody, Jake's frozen up, but back to Paris Ford. Paris Ford is like a Jamal Adams type player, and I think compared to DeMar Hamlin, just because we're going back and forth between those two guys at Pitt, those were two of the best players on that defense, and we absolutely love that defense. Where did DeMar Hamlin actually get picked by the Bills again?
He got picked in the 6th round.
So without character concerns, how high do you think Paris Ford can go? Like fourth or even higher?
Probably.
I
Probably
mean,
in the 4th round.
I mean, I'd pick him. I'd pick him that high. I don't know. I'd probably pick him in the third round. I really liked him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were other
Yeah.
guys that if they were sitting on the board, I may have taken them in front of him, but it really liked him. And if he can get his stuff together and not become Tamori and Terry, then you know, all good for him. And that there were some other interesting guys in the UDFA's, but just because of him specifically, that's the guy I wanted to mention. Anything else on the draft?
Nope. I got no other notes.
Okay. So, for the schedule, they are going for 10.5 wins is their over under for the season. So I
Oh,
thought
jeez.
I didn't know what it would be at, but that turns out to be what it is. Yeah, this is interesting to talk about where I think they'll end up. I'll say before I even start, just really quickly, that I really like adding Stafford a ton. I think that helps this team a ton. But just because they lost so much depth, I really didn't like to see how much depth they lost, and even starters. And I thought their draft was okay, but I didn't think it was good enough to really replace all those guys. And honestly, that bumped them down a decent amount of games from my perspective. But you'll see where that ends up soon enough. So against Chicago, week 1, we both like Chicago, but we like Chicago with Justin Fields. Week 1, Andy Dalton will definitely be starting. Chances are he'll make it through the game. And I obviously like LA in that situation, so that's a W there. At Indianapolis, week 2, I just like the idea. I mean, I like the team a little bit better than Indianapolis. It'll probably be a decently challenging game for the Rams early in the season. The Colts will be pretty competitive, I think, no matter who they play, but I think they'll be able to pull that one out too, so that's a W. Week 3 against Tampa Bay. See, where LA lost all these guys last year, Tampa Bay did not lose anybody, and the roster is just more complete in Tampa, so I'm gonna go with Tampa in that game, and I'm gonna say that's their first L in week 3. Week 4, they play against Arizona. I think they're significantly better than Arizona, and I think they should beat Arizona twice this season, in fact. Week 5, though, they play Thursday Night Football at Seattle, and honestly, after going through Seattle again and going through LA, even though earlier in the offseason I was feeling like LA should easily beat these guys twice, I got to tell you, now looking back at it, after we've went through both of those teams, I don't feel that confident. And at Seattle is just going to be a toss-up for me. Week 6 at the New York Giants. Don't like the Giants at all. I think that's an easy W. Week 7 against the Detroit Lions. Sorry, Jared Goff and Matt Stafford finally get to play their own old teams, so you want to try to make that a fun storyline, but I don't know if that game will even be close. I'm giving that an easy W to LA as well. I don't think the rosters are even close when they match up against each other. And the following week, they play Houston. So once again, they're going to be a significantly better roster, and I also think that's a W. Then on Sunday Night Football, week 9, against the Tennessee Titans. This is an exciting game for the year on my birthday. Once again, got to mention that every time because, this is actually going to be an awesome game, so it's a great birthday present. I'm going to be really excited to watch these two teams play. I think they'll have really good records at this point in the season. And I'm going to go after looking through LA's roster. And I can't remember if I did the opposite for Tennessee. I may have said Tennessee would lose this game. But after looking at what LA did this offseason, I don't think that Stafford makes them a completely better team than Tennessee. And I think Tennessee is actually going to win that game, even though LA is at home. But I don't think it's a strong win or loss. I mean, that's definitely going to be a great game, and I'm excited to watch it for a reason. Following week, they play Monday Night Football at San Francisco. They're going to get two probably pretty hyped up national audience games in a row, and this is a really important game in terms of just how the NFC West plays out as a whole. But once again, after going through their roster again, I think that San Francisco actually is even more far and away the best team in this division. Like I don't think it's that close. And I mean you'll get to talk about it when you get to go through their schedule, but it's really interesting to me to actually finally get through. We got through every NFC West team now, and seemingly I feel like actually the San Francisco 49ers have a big advantage over any of the other three teams, even though we think that this will be a really highly competitive division. Then they go on the bye. Week 12, they play at Green Bay. Right now, still a lot of stuff up in the air, so I felt fine. I felt fine giving them a toss-up in this game right here. Week 13, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their roster is significantly better than the Jaguars. Jalen Ramsey will probably shut down DJ Chark, since we started with some DJ Chark talk. I thought we'd get back around to it, so yeah.
Oh yeah, full circle.
And yeah, I think they're a lot better than the Jaguars, at least at this point in time, and I think they should be able to beat them. Week 14 at Arizona, still think that they're better than Arizona. That's a W. Week 15 they play Seattle again. Didn't give them a toss-up this time. They're the home team this time. They should win this game. But week 16, 17, and 18, week 16 they play at Minnesota. Once again, with what Minnesota did this offseason, I was pretty impressed with what they did as a team. You not so much, but I was pretty impressed, and I don't think a game at Minnesota with all the weapons they have is going to be an easy task for really anybody in the league. If you got to go to Minnesota, it's going to be tough, so that's a toss-up game for me. Week 17 at Baltimore, that's an L, probably just going to give the advantage to the home team there, because I think these teams do a lot of things really differently, but it's a really interesting matchup there. I don't think it's going to go like it did a year ago when Lamar was on his MVP run and just went crazy against LA in that night game. But yeah, I think that that's probably an L to Baltimore because Baltimore's the home team. In week 18, they play San Fran again. I also think that's an L because, like I said, I'm just a lot more impressed with San Fran after looking back through all the other teams. So I got 10-7, which isn't far different from the over/under perspective at 10.5. It's right there. So I don't feel strong about a bet either way on this one, but I mean this has a lot to do with Stafford now. They're gonna have a chance in every game this year. I just don't like how much depth they lost in terms of the actual season. But the thing is, once playoffs roll around, I really like this team a lot more with Stafford than with Jared Goff. I think I can say that very confidently. Whereas it may not, after seeing what the team did as a whole in the offseason, I don't necessarily know that it's going to translate into many more wins or even probably more losses than last season. But like I said, I think Stafford gives them a lot better chance in the playoffs.
I think they go 10-7 with Jared Goff. I think they're going to do a lot better than 10-7.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
Well, just to start off, I think that their free agent losses aren't as big of an impact as you do. We talked about the Titans, and we said how the Titans do not have a lot of depth, but we don't think that's going to stop them from going on a tear and winning a bunch of games. And I feel that same way about the Rams. So,
okay,
one home against Chicago. Andy Dalton's going to be starting this game. I don't really think there's going to be much question about the Bears' defense is very good. I don't think it's going to be good enough to make up for mistakes that Andy Dalton will make. Not that he makes a lot of mistakes, but you're going to be able to take advantage of that team. So I think that's going to be a win. At Indy, I don't think Indy's going to have all their stuff together until halfway through the season. And like we said when we talked about Indy, that opening stretch for them is really tough. I think that's going to be a win for the Rams. Week 3, home against Tampa Bay. I do agree with what you said, though, with just continuity and everything. Early in the season, that's where you really want continuity, is to pick up hard wins that you have at the start of the season. Teams that have continuity and can just pick up where they left off from last season, not that that's a really easy thing to do, but it's easier when you have all 22 guys back in the building, which Tampa Bay has. So I think that gives Tampa Bay the advantage there, and that gives the Rams their first L. Now the Rams go on kind of a streak here. Home against Arizona, I agree with you. They're going to sweep Arizona. Just a much better, well-rounded team, better coach team, too. I think if you put Sean McVay on the Cardinals, that is a terrifying team to have to go against. Terrifying. But They don't have Sean McVay. They have Cliff Kingsbury. So I think that's two wins that the Rams can pick up there. At Seattle, I think they win both games against the Seahawks. Uh, just I again, I'm very high on the Titans because the Titans are very, very top heavy. They don't have a lot of depth. And I feel like it'd be hypocritical of me to say that about the Titans and not say that about the Rams. And I do feel that way. I'm not just saying that because I need to maintain my stance for both that way. I do feel that way. I think you could put anyone on that because most of the guys that they lost were D linemen. You could put anyone on that D line, and Aaron Donald's going to let anyone get sacks. Like I said, you and I could be put on that D line, and we could probably pick up half a sack by the end of the season. Uh, I don't think that's going to stop them from getting a win at Seattle, just especially with Seattle's offensive line situation. And then three softballs that the schedule makers blessed them with here at the Giants, home against the Lions, and then at Houston. I think 3 wins should be expected there. If you don't come away with 3 wins there, you're kind of a disappointment.
Yeah.
Home against the Titans again. I've been using the Titans for a measuring stick for this team the whole time, and I think they're two very, very evenly matched teams. And even for the Titans episode, I gave the Rams the win here, and the only reason is because they're home. Only reason is because they're home. And they get the win against the Titans.
Oh, you know what? I would have died if you said, and this is my first toss-up game of the year.
No. So they pick up another dub in the streak, but the streak ends as they head to San Fran and pick up another L. San Fran is, I'll get to this at the end, but San Fran's going to be a tough out in this division. Same with the Rams. Going into their bye, go on another streak coming out of it. At Green Bay, I think that's going to be a win. Rodgers just doesn't feel like he's going to be back in the building at all. It seems like he's on the outs, especially with how upper management is treating it now with things that they've been saying. Home against Jacksonville. I don't know why they've been given so many easy games. They have 4 really easy games, maybe even 5 if you want to count it. With Chicago early in the season there with Andy Dalton at QB. Jacksonville here. Just an expected win. It should be. At Arizona, like I said, I think they're going to sweep the Cardinals. And home against the Seahawks, that should be a win too. And then at Minnesota, I'm not as high on Minnesota as you are. You mentioned that. I think that's going to be not an easy win because it's on the road and it's late in the season. The Vikings may be competing for playoff contention here, but I think it should be a win. At Baltimore, week 17, this is going to be a gnarly game. Like it is, because I think at this point in the season, the Rams are still going to be competing to win the division here. And they've only lost 2 games. This is how tight I think the NFC West is going to be between the Rams and the 49ers. They're going to still be competing for who wins the division at this point because the 49ers are their last game of the season. And they're going to be fighting tooth and nail in this one against Baltimore, but they have to travel all the way to the other side of the country. And I think the Ravens will pull this out. But if it comes down to it where the Ravens already have the division locked up, which I don't even think would be possible with the Browns there, but if they do, I can see the Rams picking up the win in that sense, but kind of just gave home field advantage the win here. So that's the 3rd loss of the season for the Rams. And then going into week 18, I think the 49ers will have the division locked up at that point. And I think they bench their starters and give Trey Lance a go here against the Rams, and then the Rams get the win here. So they end the season 14-3. I think that the NFC West is going to be decided between who has 15 wins and who has 14 wins when it comes to the end. It's or at least something close to that, 14-13, at least. Those teams, I cannot see the Rams just only getting double digits, like just squeaking into double digits there. It's going to be high wins for whoever takes the crown and then takes the wild card spot too, because I think whoever is the runner-up in this division is going to have the first wild card spot.
Well, if you, yeah, I agree with you actually that whoever wins this division is probably going to be looking at a really high winning percentage, meaning like 14 plus games. But the thing that's got me like tossed around is kind of like these games that I'm questioning. The three games that I have as toss up games are all road games, which doesn't really
Hmm.
help them. So I lean those towards losses because all of them are or at least two of them being losses because all three of them are on the road. And then the other thing I want to say, just because of your Tennessee point and like us talking about how you know, uh, we talked about how the superstars on the Titans are the reasons that we think that they can be so good. The difference with Tennessee and LA, I feel like, is actually going to come back to a point that you kind of have you have said to me before of like if you want to compare players, it's like Aaron Donald is like Derrick Henry, Jalen Ramsey is like AJ Brown, and then like Cooper Cup and Robert Woods are like Kevin Byard and like I don't know who do you want to pick, Bud Dupree on the defense. But the thing there is that, like you say, defense wins championships, but not regular season games. And that's exactly what I said right at the end of mine is like 10-7. Granted, I still think this team has a chance for a playoff run because they've got a lot better of a quarterback now, and they've definitely got a scheme that can find themselves a way to win, say, 3 or 4 games in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl or something like that. So I'm not counting this team out at all. I'm just saying that regular season win total I don't think will be that impressive.
I don't know. I think Stafford is going to do all he can to actually flash now that he's out of Detroit. Not that he hasn't been like holding himself back on purpose because he's in Detroit. I think he's going to be like now I'm on the big stage. And I think outside of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Matt Stafford may be the most beloved quarterback in the NFL. Uh, just everyone is rooting for this guy to succeed this season, and I just cannot see him, especially with finally a good offense and well, I shouldn't say solid weapons because he had probably the greatest wide receiver, Calvin Johnson. So it's not like he's lacked weapons, but since Megatron retired, really hasn't had a lot. He had Kenny Galladay, another underrated
Just
wide receiver, but
not the receivers specifically, but just the team
yes,
as a whole
just
has never been there.
team
The
as a whole has
receivers have
been
actually been okay
bad.
the entire time he's been there. It's really just been the rest of the team is non-existent.
Mhm. And he's going to a team where like I've said this before when we talked about the Rams in a short. Sean McVay values his superstars, and Matt Stafford is going to be one of those. And I guess you could even give that an edge over the Titans there, and not just home field. They have a superstar at quarterback in Stafford, and I don't really know if Tannehill qualifies in that category, but Stafford has it. Um,
Yeah,
and
but
I think that's what's going to give the Niners a fight for the top of the NFC West. I don't think they're just going to be like because I know double digit wins is probably going to get you into the wild card in the NFC. I don't know if you could say that about the AFC though. Uh, I don't think they're just going to be squeaking into the playoffs though. I think they're going to be like locking down a wild card spot early in the season.
okay, fair enough. What week is that?
Probably the second, either the second Arizona game or the second Seattle game.
Which is week 14, 15. All right. All right. I could see that. This team's a Super Bowl contender.
Yes, very much.
I said they were, so I mean, you're higher, so I'd hope you say
Hmm.
yes. If you said no, that would just be the
And I
worst.
think they could lose in the division, the
Like
divisional.
that's like their best chances. Alrighty. Are you all set?
Yeah, I think we could cut this here.